So imagine you're just looking up at a billboard and seeing the Apple silhouette or, the Nike swoosh.
Right, something super common.
Yeah, exactly. And suddenly finding out that this slick, modern corporate design is actually this perfectly translated, centuries-old secret code.
It sounds like something out of a thriller, honestly.
It really does. But today, we are taking a stack of analytical texts, some research notes, and visual theology sources to decode a pop culture symbol that is exactly like that.
Which is just wild to think about.
Right. We are doing a deep dive into the hidden layers of meaning behind the glowing mark on the forehead of Dr. Manhattan
Mm.
from the Watchmen universe.
Oh, it's going to be good.
Yeah, the mission today is basically to take you, the listener, on a journey showing how the literal scientific building blocks of the universe connect directly to ancient names for the divine. And it's all just hidden in plain sight.
It's the perfect subject for us to dissect, really. I mean, on the surface, if you're just flipping through the comic book, it just looks like a very simple aesthetic choice,
Look,
right?
it's a cool glowing tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. But the sources we are looking at today reveal that this seemingly simple pop culture logo is actually a profound piece of visual theology.
Visual theology, I love that term.
Yeah, it's a concept that operates on a level where mere dialogue sometimes fails. It bypasses words entirely.
Okay, so to understand how that works, we really have to start by setting the stage with the original text.
Good idea.
So if you go back to chapter 4 of Watchmen, there's this incredible moment. Dr. Manhattan is this omnipotent, glowing blue, godlike being, right? He can manipulate matter at will.
He's practically a deity walking around on Earth.
Basically, yeah. And the military, who kind of views him as their ultimate nuclear deterrent, they want to brand him. They literally want him to be their mascot.
They want to control the narrative.
Exactly. So they try to give him this really flashy, multi-ringed atomic age logo to wear on his chest. Think of like the classic mid-century sci-fi atom symbol with all those intersecting ellipses.
Right, they want him to look like a conventional superhero. I mean, the sources point out that they are projecting their own desires for intimidation, control, and propaganda onto him.
They want a symbol that screams, "We have the ultimate weapon."
Yeah, they want him to be a threat.
But he looks at this flashy logo, and he flat out rejects it. He literally calls it absurd.
It's a great moment.
He completely refuses to wear their branding. And instead, he just lifts his own finger and he burns a simple shape directly into his own skin, right between his eyes.
A single dot, surrounded by a single circle.
Yeah, just a dot in a circle.
Which really brings us to a crucial point about how we consume media. I mean, the creator of that image wasn't just making a cool graphic design choice. As our sources emphasize, this is a teaching in symbol.
Meaning, it's asking us to do some work.
Precisely. When you present an idea visually, especially one as loaded as this, you are inviting the reader to look closer, to decode it. You are communicating a really complex philosophical truth without saying a single word.
Okay, well, let's unpack this. Let's look at it from a purely scientific perspective first.
Let's do it.
Because before we can even touch the theology or the ancient history stuff, we need to understand exactly what it is that Dr. Manhattan carved into his head.
Right, the actual physics of it.
Yeah. When he rejects the military's flashy logo, he says he wants a symbol he can respect. So if we look at the raw science, what is that dot and the circle?
So in the language of science, the symbol he chooses is the Bohr model of a hydrogen atom.
Hydrogen atom.
Yeah.
Out of all the elements in the universe, all the incredibly complex molecular structures he could have chosen, he picks hydrogen. Why?
Well, it comes down to what hydrogen represents at the most fundamental level of reality. To understand why he respects it, we really have to look at how our sources describe hydrogen.
Okay.
They call it the first and smallest. So let's break down the first part. Hydrogen is atomic number 1 on the periodic table.
Right.
But it's not just first on a chart in a chemistry classroom, It is the absolute origin point of all matter in the universe.
Like going all the way back to the Big Bang.
Exactly. During the Big Bang, hydrogen was the very first element to form. Every single other element, the carbon in your body, the iron in your blood, the oxygen you are breathing right now.
It all comes from hydrogen.
Yes. It was all forged inside stars by smashing hydrogen atoms together.
So in a very literal, empirical sense, it is the alpha, like the absolute beginning, the seed from which the entire physical universe grows.
Precisely. Scientifically, it is the alpha. Everything else is just a derivation of it. And then there is the second part of that descriptor, which is the smallest.
Right, because if you visualize the Bohr model, which Niels Bohr proposed back in 1913 to explain atomic structure.
Good memory.
Thanks. It is just one nucleus in the center, which is the dot, and one electron orbiting it, which makes the circle.
Yeah, exactly. It is the smallest, simplest possible atom that can exist. You literally cannot get any simpler than one proton and one electron and still have a chemical element.
If you take anything away, it ceases to be matter.
Right. And in linguistic terms, the word iota represents the smallest possible unit or trace of something. So, scientifically speaking, hydrogen is the iota.
The iota.
Yeah, it is the fundamental, indivisible starting point of physical reality.
Okay, so we have the alpha, meaning the first, and the iota, meaning the smallest.
Right.
But let me step into the shoes of the listener for a second and just push back on this a bit.
Sure, go for it.
Think about it from Dr. Manhattan's perspective. He is an all-powerful being. He can teleport across the galaxy. He can perceive the past, present, and future all at once.
He's basically a god.
Exactly. So why does a being with that much power choose the absolute smallest possible unit of matter to represent himself? I mean, if I have godlike powers, I feel like I'm picking a roaring sun or a whole galaxy or something massive and intimidating.
And that is exactly why the military gave him the flashy multi-ringed atom.
Oh, right.
But for a being with his level of cosmic awareness, flashy displays of power are entirely meaningless. They are human constructs driven by ego.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, by choosing the hydrogen atom, Manhattan aligns himself with the most fundamental first principle of the physical universe. He is choosing ultimate foundational truth over human posturing.
He is basically saying, I am not your weapon and I am not your superhero.
Exactly. He's saying, I am the very fabric of reality itself.
Man, he really strips away the ego and goes straight to the foundation.
Ah.
But here is where this deep dive takes a massive turn. We're moving from quantum physics into something entirely different.
They really are.
Because taking the scientific descriptors of that hydrogen atom, the iota and the alpha, it leads us to an incredible historical connection.
What's genuinely fascinating here is what happens when you combine those two linguistic terms for the hydrogen atom, the iota representing the smallest, and the alpha representing the first.
Right.
When you put them together, you get iota alpha,
Yep.
or simply the letters IA.
IA, 2 letters. Now wait, hold on, let me stop you right there. I read the sources, and I know where we are heading, but as a skeptic, I just have to ask. Are we just putting 2 Greek letters together because they spell the initials for smallest and first and then saying it's magic?
I get how it sounds.
I mean, jumping from a 20th century quantum physics model to ancient theology, just because the words start with I and A sounds like a massive stretch, how do those actually connect linguistically?
Yeah, I mean, that is a totally fair question, and it requires us to look at the mechanics of transliteration. We are not just playing word games with initials here.
Okay, I'm listening.
This scientific iota alpha perfectly and phonetically mirrors the ancient, historically attested name of God.
Okay, walk me through exactly how that translation works. How does an ancient Hebrew name become Greek letters that perfectly match our atomic model?
It comes down to how sounds map across ancient languages. So in the Hebrew tradition, the short 2-letter name for divinity is u.3.v.o.l.i.
Yod-he. Okay.
Now, if you are a Greek speaker trying to write down that Hebrew name, you have to transliterate the sounds. You can't just use the same alphabet.
Right, you're just trying to capture the audio of the word.
Exactly. So the Hebrew letter yod produces an E or Y sound. The exact phonetic equivalent in the Greek alphabet is the letter iota.
Okay, so yod becomes iota. That cracks perfectly.
Right. And then the second Hebrew letter, he, produces a breathy ah sound.
Like an A.
Yes. The phonetic equivalent for that in Greek is the letter alpha. So when ancient scholars translated the Hebrew yod he into Greek, they didn't translate the meaning of the words, they translated the phonetics.
Wow.
Yeah, yod he literally becomes iota alpha, IA.
That is just wild. It's kind of like finding a Rosetta Stone, where the mathematical equation for a hydrogen atom perfectly translates the grammar of an ancient hymn.
It really is.
But we aren't just guessing that ancient people spelled it this way, right? Because our sources bring up a specific historical figure to back this up.
Yes, we have receipts for this. We have to look back to the 5th century to a scholar and bishop named Theodoret of Cyrus.
Definitely not a name you expect to drop when talking about a comic book published in 1986.
No, definitely not, but his work is the absolute linchpin of this entire connection.
Tell me more about him.
So, Theodore was deeply interested in how different cultures understood and pronounced divine names. In his theological text, which is called Questions on Exodus, he thoroughly documented this.
What did he find?
He recorded that while the Samaritans pronounced the divine name as Iabi, the Jewish people of his era used the pronunciation Ia.
Wow.
He literally wrote down the Greek transliteration of the Hebrew yod-he as iota alpha.
Okay, if you're listening to this on your commute or, at the gym, just pause and think about the timeline we are straddling right now.
It's massive.
You have a comic book character in the 1980s who chooses a scientific symbol because it is the smallest and the first element, the iota and the alpha.
Right.
And a 5th century bishop completely confirms that the exact literal translation of the ancient name of God into Greek is also iota alpha. It isn't some modern contrivance or a fan theory. It is a phonetic fact recorded 1,500 years ago.
It is a remarkable convergence of science and theology. And the historical lineage of that IA translation doesn't even stop with a dusty scroll in the 5th century.
It keeps going.
It carries forward into the Renaissance and the Reformation. Specifically, it is perfectly preserved in one of the most important texts in English history.
Oh, right, the 1539 Great Bible.
Yes.
Let's provide some context for that,
Yeah.
because this isn't just some obscure book sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
This was commissioned during the reign of King Henry VIII, right?
Exactly. The 1539 Great Bible was the very first authorized edition of the Bible in English. It was a monumental achievement in literature and theology, and it was designed to be read aloud in churches across the country.
The standard for the whole nation.
Yeah. And if you look closely at its text, specifically at Psalm 68, verse 4, you find this exact naming convention perfectly preserved.
I actually pulled up the typography from the source images while I was prepping for this.
Yeah.
And it is honestly haunting to look at.
It really jumps off the page.
It does. The text explicitly says, "Praise ye him in his name Ia, and rejoice before him." Seeing those two capitalized letters, I and A, just sitting there in that heavy, Gothic, 500-year-old typeface, it really anchors this concept in reality.
It anchors it deeply.
Yeah.
Now, it is worth noting for our listeners who might really know their scripture that later versions of the Bible altered that translation.
Like the King James Version, right?
Exactly. The incredibly famous King James Version, which was published a few decades later, changed the IA to JAH.
Oh, sure. JAH, which is how most people recognize it today.
Right. But the 1539 Great Bible serves as primary historical proof. It freezes that literal Greek translation in time, preserving the IA, the iota alpha, as the authorized primary English translation of the Creator.
All right, so let's summarize where we are. We have established what the symbol means.
The iota alpha.
Right. We've traced the science of the hydrogen atom directly through the phonetic translation of the ancient yod-he, verified by a 5th century bishop, right into the 1539 Great Bible. The atom and the divine name are completely linguistically intertwined.
Yes, they are one and the same.
But a symbol is not just about what it is also about where it is placed.
Context is everything.
Exactly. If we connect this back to the visual theology of the comic book, we have to talk about the canvas itself, the human body.
Right.
Think about physical branding or tattoos in our culture today. Where you place the mark on your body is an argument all by itself. A small tattoo hidden on your ankle communicates something completely different than, say, a massive tattoo right across your throat.
Absolutely. The geography of the body matters immensely in visual storytelling.
And Dr. Manhattan didn't put this symbol on a belt buckle. He didn't wear it on a cape or stitch it onto his chest like Superman or Batman.
He bypassed the costume entirely.
He took his finger, glowing with nuclear heat, and he burned it directly into his forehead.
Why the forehead? Well, because across countless cultures and millennia, the forehead has always been understood as the absolute seat of identity.
It's the first thing you look at.
Exactly. It is the most visible, forward-facing part of the human form. It is the vanguard of who you are. When you put a mark on the forehead, you are making an ultimate, inescapable declaration. This is who I fundamentally am.
Wow.
But in the context of the deep theology we've been unpacking, the placement on the forehead isn't just about identity. It serves a much deeper prophetic purpose.
Okay, so if we are talking about ancient sacred texts and marks on the forehead, my mind immediately goes to the book of Revelation.
And that's exactly where it should go.
I mean, you can't talk about apocalyptic imagery without going there. Is this a direct connection?
It is a direct visual fulfillment. The placement of the symbol points specifically to the book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 4.
What does that verse say?
So, for context, Revelation is the final book of the biblical canon. It is the culmination of the entire story of reality. And in chapter 22, It describes the final state of existence, the ultimate reality of the divine presence. And it says, "And they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads."
His name shall be in their foreheads. Wow. Just let the weight of that sink in. By burning the Bohr model of the hydrogen atom onto his brow, Dr. Manhattan isn't just getting a cool minimalist tattoo to spite the military.
Not at all.
He is literally, visually wearing the iota alpha, the ancient Yod-He translation of the divine name, right on his forehead.
He is fulfilling the prophecy in real time within the narrative of the story, and it perfectly aligns with who he has become.
How so?
Well, remember, Dr. Manhattan is a being who perceives all time and matter simultaneously. He exists in the past, the present, and the future all at once. In theological terms, he embodies the concept of the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
Right, because he experiences the 1980s, the 5th century, and the Big Bang concurrently.
Exactly. So by wearing this specific symbol, the first and smallest building block of matter, in this specific place, the seat of identity on the brow, he visually fulfills the role of a being who has transcended humanity to become the Alpha and Omega.
That completely changes how I view the artwork. I mean, it proves that the image in the comic book isn't just an action shot of a superhero making a costume choice.
It's way deeper than that.
It is a dense, layered teaching tool. It is arguing that the absolute smallest building block of science, the hydrogen atom, and the highest, most revered name of divinity are actually pointing to the exact same reality.
It elevates the medium of the graphic novel entirely, I think. We are not just looking at a man with superpowers. We are looking at a living testament.
Yeah.
It is a visual argument that the first and the smallest is, paradoxically, the ultimate seat of power. It bridges physics, identity, and ancient revelation, all in a single pen stroke.
I love how this circles back to what you said at the very beginning of the show about a teaching in symbol.
Right.
Because when we first started this deep dive, we were looking at a comic book panel. A glowing blue guy rejecting a flashy logo from some military generals. It felt very grounded in mid-century sci-fi tropes.
Very surface level.
But by peeling back the layers and actually exploring the how and the why, we have traveled a massive distance today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We started with the quantum mechanics of the Bohr model and stellar nucleosynthesis. We waded through the phonetic Greek translations of a 5th century bishop named Theodoret.
Yep.
We opened the heavy, dusty pages of the 1539 Great Bible, ordered by King Henry VIII, and we ultimately landed at the apocalyptic prophecies of the Book of Revelation. All of that history, all of that science, and all of that theology, compressed and contained inside a single dot, surrounded by a single circle, resting on a character's brow.
It is a profound journey, and I think it really highlights the density of meaning that can be packed into visual art.
Absolutely.
The creator of that image took the rigid empiricism of physics, the deep history of ancient identity, and the mysteries of revelation, and forged them together into a single point of light.
So what does this all mean for you listening to us right now? Obviously, it's a fascinating piece of trivia for a beloved story, but it has to be much more than that, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Our sources emphasize that we shouldn't just look at these images as mere disposable entertainment. They're asking us to look closer at the media we consume every single day.
Whether it is a graphic novel, a blockbuster film, or even the architecture of the buildings we walk past on our way to work.
Exactly. It is an invitation to be an active reader of the world around you. Symbols hold immense power. They carry intersecting truths that span across disciplines.
And we just miss them.
We do, when we lazily dismiss them as just cool marketing designs or purely aesthetic choices. We are missing out on the deeper, much more vital conversations they're trying to have with us.
Which brings me to one final thought I want to leave you with today. Something for you to mull over long after this deep dive ends.
I love a good takeaway.
Our sources clearly state that Dr. Manhattan chose this symbol, the hydrogen atom, because it was the only symbol he could truly respect as a scientist. He demanded empirical truth.
He demanded the fundamental building blocks.
Right. Yet, as we have discovered today, that fundamental scientifically verified smallest building block of matter is completely, phonetically, and perfectly synonymous with the ancient highest name of the divine.
It's a beautiful paradox.
So if the literal foundation of modern quantum science and the literal name of ancient theology perfectly translate to the exact same symbol, Does that imply that science and theology aren't actually opposing forces at all?
That's a huge question.
What if they were simply two entirely different vocabularies developed centuries apart, trying desperately to describe the exact same ultimate reality?
It makes you wonder.
It really does. And if that level of profound meaning can be hidden on the forehead of a blue superhero in a 1980s comic book, what other random everyday symbols are you walking past right now, completely unaware that they are carrying a hidden ancient theology of their own?
Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving deep into one of the most iconic images in comic book history, period. Yeah, I'm talking about that symbol Dr. Manhattan burns right onto his own forehead. Now, on the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? But trust me, as we're about to see, it holds layers of meaning that are just, well, they're truly mind-blowing. So let's just start with a huge question. What if this symbol that we all know so well is also the one we understand the least? What if it's been hiding this incredibly profound argument right there in plain sight? And for all these years, we've all been missing the deepest part of the story. All right, so to even begin to understand the hidden meaning, we first have to talk about the obvious one. The first layer of this whole thing is rooted firmly in the world of science, which makes a lot of sense for Dr. Manhattan. And you gotta remember, this wasn't a symbol that was just given to him. Oh no. When the military tried to brand him with this flashy, multi-ringed atomic age logo, he just looks at it and calls it absurd. His choice was deliberate, something he said he could actually respect as a scientist. So what did he choose? This, the Bohr model of a hydrogen atom. And as you can see, it's about as simple as it gets. One proton, one electron. By picking this, he's not just grabbing a cool science logo. He's aligning himself with the most fundamental, the most basic building block of our entire reality. And this, right here, is where the first huge piece of the puzzle just clicks into place. You see, in scientific terms, hydrogen is both the alpha, it's the very first element on the periodic table, and it's the iota, the smallest and simplest atom that can even exist. Now, remember those two words, iota and alpha. Burn them into your brain, because they are absolutely crucial for what's coming next. Okay, so we've got the science layer down, but this is where the rabbit hole gets so much deeper. We're about to jump from the language of physics to the language of theology. And believe it or not, it all hinges on those two little words. So here's the pivot point. We have iota for the smallest, alpha for the first. But what if that's not a coincidence? What if those two scientific labels actually combine to unlock a completely different, much deeper level of meaning? And here it is. This is the connection. Those scientific terms, iota and alpha, they combine to form the acronym Aya. And get this, Aya also happens to be an ancient, two-letter translation of the divine name for God. All of a sudden, the symbol for the simplest piece of matter is also a name for the ultimate divinity. It's just, wow. And listen, this isn't some modern fan theory. This has deep historical roots. Way back in the 5th century, the scholar Theodore of Cyrus actually recorded the name as Yah. Then, more than 1,000 years later, the 1539 Great Bible, the first authorized English Bible, explicitly uses Yah in Psalm 68. Sure, modern Bibles might use Jah or Lord, but the history, the original translation, it's right there. So we have the symbol's hidden name. But the final piece of this insane puzzle isn't just what the symbol is, it's where he puts it. This is the moment the entire argument just locks together perfectly. Just listen to this verse from the book of Revelation. And his name shall be in their foreheads, a prophecy, talking about the divine name being placed directly on the forehead. So let's just connect all the dots. 1, 2, 3. 1. The symbol for hydrogen gives us iota and alpha. 2. This creates the acronym IA, an ancient name for God. And 3. Dr. Manhattan places this very symbol, this name, right on his forehead. He is literally, visually fulfilling a biblical prophecy. It's wild. I mean, when you put it all together, you realize this isn't just some cool design choice. It is an entire intellectual and theological argument, presented to us as a single powerful image. This symbol basically becomes a bridge, a meeting point. It connects the first and smallest building block of our physical universe, the hydrogen atom, with one of the oldest names for the creator of that universe. It's a visual argument that, hey, maybe science and divinity aren't so far apart after all. And one writer put it perfectly. They said it suggests that the smallest principle of matter and the highest language of divinity may be pointing to the same reality. This isn't just a superhero logo anymore, is it? It's what the source calls a teaching in symbol. So that's what we're left with. It really forces you to ask, can a simple image from a comic book actually be more than just art? Can it be a profound argument about the very nature of reality itself? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this one.